So, how to purify the mind? If a pure mind is obtained, then a pure body will follow. Because through pure mind, the way to pure body and to pure world becomes clear. A pure, clear path that you must simply walk on. Walking the path leads to harmony and enlightenment. But in order for one to be in a position to walk that path, one must have pure mind. And pure mind is obtained by removing and avoiding defilements. It is simply a clearing of the clouds. Ignorance becoming understanding, confusion becoming clarity, illusion becoming enlightenment, as simple and natural as the sunlight melting ice. So it is a natural progression, but this natural progression can be suspended by defilements and unpure mind. It is safe to say that the majority of points of perception awake in this dream world right now are struggling with removing and avoiding defilement. We are in the midst of suspended progression. But why linger in it? Why not act now? In most cases, it does take work to give up addictions. Removing attachments is an arduous task. But instead of exhausting oneself trying to remove attachments one defilement at a time, one can save themselves a whole lot of time and energy if they simply remove the attachment to defilement. Giving up on not only just the activities, but also the need to participate in activities. Giving up not on all activities, but only defiled activities. A defiled activity being defined as anything that serves to cloud pure mind, and virtue being defined as any activity that serves to uncloud pure mind. Because there is defilement, which should be flowing naturally, needs to be translated into something practical to help one remove defilements. One way to remove defilement, perhaps the best way, is to carefully guard the doors of the senses. This is a mindful watchfulness of everything one sees, smells, hears, tastes, and touches. The things that we take into our bodies, the things that we take into our minds. Half of the things that we can take into our bodies and minds will defile us and lead to clouded minds. The other half of the things that we can take into our bodies and minds will purify us and lead to clear, pure mind. So how do we properly guard the doors to the five senses? One way is to be ever watchful and ever mindful to the things that we ingest into our bodies. Quite simply, the things that we eat and the things that we drink. We can start off by eating a whole lot less. Cut down on portions and the amount of meals that we eat. Then, from the money we save from cutting down, we can invest in food that is healthy, natural, and organic. Ideally, we should be growing our own food. But unfortunately, this has become a luxury that not many have the time, knowledge, or means for. We should be avoiding food and beverages with lots of chemicals, artificial additives, hormones, and pesticides. Make sure all foods and all the ingredients of all foods are natural and pure. Another great beneficial thing we can do, which will help our minds and bodies as well as the planet and ecosystem, helping greatly reduce suffering worldwide, is to become vegetarians, especially in light of the way we treat the animals in this slaughterhouse industrial complex. We inflict extreme disturbance, suffering, and distress in these animals from the day they are born to the day they are slaughtered, sustaining them in deplorable conditions, restricting them of their freedom and natural instincts, till the day when we brutally kill them. Then we eat these animals. We feed on meat tainted with anger, distress, and suffering. This is not good for one's body and mind. By doing these things, we are becoming more mindful of the things we are putting into our minds and bodies. We can also do ourselves good by not ingesting addictive, sensational intoxicants that only serve to cloud the mind. These would include alcohol, cocaine, heroin, meth, PCP, ecstasy, prescription drugs, or any other uppers or downers, whether legal or illegal, whether natural or synthetic. We can also guard the doors of the senses by being mindful of what we let into our eyes, ears, and nose. Avoid noxious odors from pollution and waste. Being mindful of what sights and sounds we allow in. People don't realize it, but much of the TV, movies, books, magazines, music, and various other elements of entertainment and pop culture are in fact toxic and poisonous. These defilements introduce negative installations of anger, pride, greed, envy, materialism, and laziness that only enable decadence, callousness, and ignorance. We should be careful letting these negative influences through the doors of the senses, even though they seem harmless and entertaining. So carefully guarding the doors of the senses is what enables one to obtain pure mind. If one obtains pure mind, this in effect means that one has mastered foolishness. What does it mean to have mastered foolishness? To master foolishness, there is a spiritual practice I'd like to recommend right now off the cuff, and that's disciplined foolishness. And this touches back on the teaching of being unconcerned with the way the content is arranged. This is a spiritually advanced teaching, but for beginners on the spiritual path, this teaching could be misleading if not fully clarified. Now, the reason why so many people struggle with this teaching is because it is asking you to become unconcerned with the way the content is arranged, while at the same time still being concerned with the way the content is arranged. Yes, it's paradoxical. It's like structured chaos or meaningless meaning. True understanding of this wisdom comes through the awareness that ultimately nothing matters, because it is all impermanent. Yet things go on as if they mattered. Now, the factor of impermanence is without question. This is an undeniable and unarguable truth and fact, at least within this frame of reference. Only the essence of what the content is composed of is permanent and always so. The forms and appearances and the way the content arranges itself is all impermanent. The undeniable fact that death will come, or better worded, the undeniable fact that change will come. So all of us individually know that one day we are going to die. But knowing that, we go on living. We do not just lay down and die right now. So it all adds up to nothing. It is all futile. Nothing matters. And yet we go on living as if it did. This is a form of foolishness. It is a cosmic joke. If one confronts this paradox with a pure mind, then they will clearly see that the way to master foolishness is through disciplined foolishness. This is when one realizes and sees that nothing matters, and yet while seeing and realizing that nothing matters, not just conducting themselves in any old way, but in a disciplined way. This in itself is what masters foolishness, what sustains pure mind. This is why one must be careful with the teaching of being unconcerned with the way the content is arranged. Because if one is still in the midst of struggling with worldly attachments and worldly desires, it can enable one to linger in it. And one does not want to linger in clouded mind. There is nothing to learn or discover by lingering in clouded mind. The only thing to learn from clouded mind is that there is pure mind. In pure mind is where the learning and discovery lies. In clouded mind, one can only be lost in confusion. Now, there's a couple of points about being unconcerned with the way the content is arranged that should be clarified. For those that are struggling with becoming unconcerned with the way the content arranges itself, there are two things that you're going to have to overcome and master. The first is the meaning of the content, and the second is being provoked by the content. The key is to not let things disturb you or perturb you or to cause you distress or to cloud your pure mind, to become free from suffering. So first, one must give up the attachment to the meaning of the content, to not get caught up in the details. This is the biggest and most distracting disturbance. A plus B equals C, and people react with a whole range of emotions, all of which are distracting and disturbances. Once one has overcome being disturbed by the meaning of the content, then one will have to overcome being confronted and provoked by the content. Just because one has overcome being disturbed by the details does not mean they are free from situation and circumstance. So not only must one free themselves from the meaning of condition, but also from the condition itself. Freedom from being disturbed by the details, and freedom from being disturbed by being in the details. Of course, the best tool to help one navigate through this process is the spiritual tool of disciplined foolishness. The key to mastering the paradoxical, meaningless meaning. The Buddha's Eightfold Noble Path. Carefully guarding the doors of the senses. Finding peace and purity and naturalness within yourself, and then doing everything you can to facilitate it in others, and to end all suffering both in yourself and in others. Even though it's all futile, even though it all doesn't matter. The disciplines of foolishness obtain pure mind, where the awareness of the wisdom of the meaningless meaning reside.